I continue a little bit from the topic that I raised 2 days ago. What I talked about is that in our daily life, we are afflicted by the 3 conditions, and that is sensual desire or desire, ill will, and delusion. That's how the Buddha put it. And there are ways of battling those, of overcoming them. And what I tried last 2 days ago to explain is that these things, these antidotes, let's say it in modern parlance, they need to be developed. This is not something that you can, whenever something comes up, you can, at least not at the beginning, it's not something that you just can pull out of your pocket and use it, and then the negative state or the state of confusion will suddenly just disappear. This is something one has to work towards it. The simile was that once the train gets rolling, it's really hard to stop it or to get off it. The best way to stop a train is before it starts to gather momentum. And the Buddha kind of opened these 3 conditions up even further, and he calls them the 5 hindrances. And all of these hindrances have certain proven methods and techniques to overcome them, to work with them and to overcome them. And today I hope I can go with you through those 5 hindrances, and you might see, okay, this is actually something I have to work with. And then we also discuss what are these proven methods to overcome them. The first one, and probably the most important one, or the most difficult one, is our delight into the 5 senses. So that's actually called sensual or sensory desire. So any involvement or delight into the 5 senses is something that keeps us from going deeper in our meditation, going deeper in our understanding and wisdom. And maybe before I go into this, you might think these 5 hindrances are something that you can only experience or work on in your meditation. But this is something that you can work with throughout your whole day. There's nothing that stops you from practicing, cultivating one of these meditation objects, even if you're doing something else. So, back to sensory desire. I will talk now about cultivating these antidotes in your meditation, but please don't just take it as that. This is something that one can cultivate throughout. So, let's say we go into a formal meditation, sit on the cushion. The first part of this sensory delight usually concerns the 5 senses that relate to the world. So that would be hearing, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touch. Yeah. So when we are going into like a formal meditation, this is somewhat like we are putting ourselves into some special environment generally that supports us letting go of these 5 external senses. So generally we meditate with our eyes closed, and we are not doing anything outwardly. We are sitting still. But still, generally, we don't close our ears, so we are still hearing sound, or we are still feeling the touch of the clothes of our body, or the pressure that our body makes on the floor. So what one can do then is to kind of examine these external sense impressions. One way I explained 2 Dhamma sharings, a way would be to really see what is actually happening. Yeah? For example, I explained it on the sound. Actually, the world is silent. The sound actually happens in our brain. So our brain paints the world. And that's not just true for sound, that's true for all sense impressions. And to go through the chain of what is actually happening before the sense of sound gets created in our brain, our mind, to go through that and see through the apparent reality makes it easier to let go of these sense impressions, because we will see that in the end, it's all made up in our mind. We can't really see what is out there, or can't really experience what is out there. Another possibility, especially when it comes to like pain, for example, is to look at the pain and see, is there really pain down there? Where is the pain? Try to find, for example, the center of the pain. And again, one can see that the pain is actually like much more a concept than this sensory impingement on our bodies. And by seeing that this is a concept, it is much easier to let go of it, because it's made up, basically. So, and then when we have kind of practiced this for a while, we generally see that these external senses come to a rest, and then the inner world starts really happening. Thoughts, we are identifying with thought. And this is something that many people really kind of have difficulties with, because we have the feeling, okay, I sit down, I'm reasonably peaceful, but then my thoughts just take me away. I see these pictures in the mind, and they take me on a train ride. And then 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, maybe at the end of the meditation session, when the bell rings, you come out of it and you realize, well, I haven't really meditated. I have just indulged in thinking. So what I generally try to see with thought is that there are two types of people. There are people who think in pictures, and then there are people who think in words. And for me, I'm more like the picture guy. So when I'm mindful, I can see that the mind is showing me pictures. And if I pay attention to them, I see that they are really like almost lifeless, basically like old black and white photographs. But the moment I give them attention, unwise attention, they suddenly fill with color, and then they start rolling, and then it becomes a movie. And that's basically the time when the train has left. That's very difficult then to come off it. So for me, like seeing those thoughts as really not interesting black and white photographs. It's a bit like someone wants to show you their photo album, but you don't know anyone on these pictures, and they're kind of very old, and this person is really delighted about them because he knows all these situations and all these people, and you think, oh, I hope he doesn't have another picture to show me. I'm happy if this one ends. So seeing those thoughts as like black and white pictures, all yellowed, can help to not engage with them. But if you engage with them, that's really important, and you come out of it, then see this as a moment of strength. So you have gone with a thought, you have ruminated, delighted in that thought without realizing it actually, but then at a certain point you see, I'm actually thinking. Then this is the time to strengthen your muscle, your meditation muscle, and bring it back to the meditation. And what's really important is that you see this as a moment of strength. This is something to be proud of, actually. It's like a bodybuilder who kind of lifts weights. He is not kind of devastated when he lets the weight go to the ground, because he sees this as an opportunity to do another repetition. And then slowly, slowly he builds up his muscles. And that's what we are doing in our meditation, especially in the beginning. We are meditating, we are losing our meditation object. We realize it, and with happiness, with gladness, we bring our mind back to the meditation object. And if one does that over and over, our meditation muscle is strengthening. So, what would be the next hindrance? The next hindrance is actually ill will. And you might think, okay, this is mainly ill will towards another person. But in meditation, that's rarely the case. It's usually an ill will we have with ourselves. Some kind of negativity to ourselves that needs to be overcome. And we can overcome this by one of the most famous meditation objects, or the meditations practices, that's called loving kindness meditation, metta meditation. So this is something one can practice, again, not just during one's meditation, but throughout one's life, having loving kindness for you, having forgiveness for whatever happened in the past. This is something we have to cultivate. And Many people who start with this loving kindness meditation, they find that it's quite easy to spread metta, loving kindness to other people, but really difficult towards yourself. Then later to your meditation and you have this ill will, this unresolved ill will. So it's really good to practice this metta meditation a lot. I think there are lots of meditation instructions, guided meditations on how to develop that. So, and staying with ill will, another ill will that one actually cultivates as a meditator sometimes is ill will towards one's meditation object. So let's say it's the breath. You have meditated with the breath quite a while and you have the feeling, well, I haven't really gotten somewhere. And then slowly but steady you develop this ill will towards this meditation object. Why do I have to meditate on the breath? It's really not interesting. Is it really necessary to meditate on the breath? Maybe I could do something else. This is something, as I said, that one actually develops as a meditator sometimes. And how to overcome this is by a type of compassion towards your meditation object, towards developing compassion. One could kind of compare to, let's say, someone asks you, like your sister or your brother or one of your closest family, they have a small baby and they ask you to take care of that baby for an afternoon because they have to go, I don't know, to the dentist or whatnot. And when you get this baby, you will be very attentive because it's precious. You will kind of play with it and find ways to share something with it. And you will definitely be paying very close attention to that baby. And similarly, I mean, you might have heard it in the past, is that this is how we should hold our meditation object. Gently, not to hurt it, but also firmly, because we don't want the baby or our meditation object to slip from our grasp. And the next hindrance would be sloth and torpor, or tiredness. And you might all have battled with that hindrance. It's basically you sit on your cushion, you feel quite comfortable, and then your mind becomes dull. And this can have basically, again, two reasons. One reason is you're just really tired. And that's completely okay, because you live a busy life, you have things to do, you have stuff to worry about. So quite often it's actually what you need is not to meditate, you need a rest. And this is something one has to acknowledge and one has to take care of. But if this becomes like a hindrance, so you feel quite rested and you go into your meditation and the dullness comes up anyway, then you might see, okay, this is actually something you have to work with. The wrong way to work with it is to kind of clench your teeth and sit up straight and kind of battle with your mind. You feel your mind is kind of slipping and you are kind of clenching your teeth and battle with it and say, no, now is the time to meditate. And to overcome this would be to give your mind space, to open up to whatever the mind experiences in the present moment. And if it's dullness or sleepiness, then this is what it experiences in the present moment. And you can actually put some awareness towards that state of mind. So battling it could very well lead into the next hindrance, and that would be restlessness. You overcome your dullness, and suddenly you're restless. So these two hindrances, they come quite often as a pair. You think, okay, I'm either dull or I'm restless, but how can I be both? Well, you're swinging back and forth between the two states. So overcoming dullness, pay attention to the mind, let it be what it is, but paying attention to it. And then with restlessness, one could reflect on the preciousness one has being born as a human being, as a quite intelligent human being, and having come in contact with the Buddha's words, with the training, having a good environment to practice in, having teachers, listening to the Dhamma. That's all something that one can hold really precious. And this might overcome the restlessness. And then the last hindrance would be doubt. The doubt that you are incapable of doing this practice. And what helped me actually a lot is to listen to Dhamma talks. Because quite often the teachers, especially in the Thai forest tradition, they talk a lot about their own path. And many of them, especially like Western people having trained in the Thai forest tradition, many people had a lot of difficulties in the beginning. And they were doubting themselves. And they were beating themselves up, almost literally. And then over the years, they have become people you look up to. People who seem to just sit on the cushion, not move at all. And they talk about meditation experiences that you or I never had. But many of them started with a lot of difficulty in their own ability to do this practice. And so this helps me then to reflect, okay, I'm not the only one who can't sit for an hour straight or still. So this helps to see that other people have difficulties too and they have overcome them. And then another way of doubting would of course be doubting in the practice itself, in the training, even in the words of the Buddha. And again, this is overcome by listening to an inspiring Dhamma talk, by reading a book, to see and be inspired by the word of the Buddha or by the teaching of an accomplished teacher. And this is what I find quite often when I haven't listened to a Dhamma talk and then suddenly I get something into my hand and I put it on and then suddenly I have this feeling, wow, now I have to get onto the cushion. I need to practice. I need to use this momentum to develop my meditation. So and that was a really, really quick walk through the 5 hindrances. But it's worthwhile to look these things up, maybe in the Tipitaka or in some teaching of another teacher, because it's important to keep those hindrances and to keep those antidotes in mind, what one can do to overcome them. And that's today's Dhamma sharing.